comes to the crunch, few people can face a crisis alone. Every day the church army is out on the streets, facing the challenge of people in crisis. Inspired by the vision of Christian love in action, they believe in the right of every individual to care and compassion, and a knowledge of God.
May the Lord answer you when you're in trouble. May the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from his temple and give you aid from Mount Zion. May he accept all of your offerings and be pleased with all your sacrifices. May he give you what you desire and make all your plans succeed. Then we will shout for joy over your victory and celebrate your triumph by praising our God. Then we will shout for joy over your victory and celebrate your triumph by praising our God. May the Lord answer you when you're in trouble. May the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from his temple and give you aid from Mount Zion. Oh, may he accept all of your offering and be pleased with all your sacrifices. May he give you what you desire and make all your plans succeed. Then we will shout for joy over your victory and celebrate your triumph by praising our God. Then we will shout for joy over your victory.
100 years ago, Wilson Carlyle, founder of the church army, had this to say.
The spirit of aggression must be forced on the church laity, or they will slumber. They must either manfully fight or die. The good parish clergyman is already overworked, and the laity must put their hand to the sword.
The story of Wilson Carlyle and the church army challenges us to think again about the nature of the gospel and the responsibilities of the church, about the aggression and wholeheartedness vital to effective Christian witness. Wilson Carlyle was born in Brixton in 1847. At the age of 14, he left school and entered his grandfather's silk business.
By the time I had reached the age of 25, I had made £20,000 and was giving my whole time to the task of making money. My mind was tending to materialism and agnosticism. But in 1873, through ambition, I lost nearly all and set to work again to make more. By the gentle influence of my wife and of my aunt, my thoughts were turned in another direction. I then came out boldly for Christ and threw in my lot with the great Moody and Sankey missions. In 1880, I threw up business and entered college with a view to ordination. and in 1882 I became curate of St. Mary Abbots, Kensington. I felt then, as now, that the Church's great task is amongst the vast masses outside, and at a series of open-air meetings in Kensington and Westminster, the best helpers proved to be working men who could tell, in the homely language of the workshop, of what Christ had done for them. We started the Church Army to train these working men and women to be lay evangelists in the Church. We chose the most degraded districts of England and were knocked about like ninepins for our pains. Shortly afterwards, we initiated a series of labour homes in which we could help ex-prisoners, tramps, and also honest men in distress. From these small beginnings, a colossal work has grown, with branches and outposts in all parts of the world.
The gospel of Christ has always to cross barriers of privilege, of poverty, of mistrust between classes. And from the beginning, the Church Army has encouraged men and women to talk to others like themselves about the love of God.
Can you speak in the same homely language about Christ and your religion as you can and do about your daily work?
Wilson Carlyle himself was a determined communicator. Again and again he made the gospel and the Christian life relevant and down to earth for a crowded congregation. Because he believed in straight talking, he saw how vital it was to understand current thinking. He'd always ask himself and his colleagues,
what is in the mind of the public today, and indeed tomorrow?
And the Bible would be searched for the appropriate message for modern man, and delivered in a way which would be clearly understood. In every way, Carlyle was in the forefront of turning new techniques to the ends of evangelism and worship. His flexibility and openness to change, born out of his desire to communicate. He introduced an orchestra and a brass band to parade the streets. He used lantern slides and films before the days of commercial cinema. People learnt of the advent of television from Wilson Carlyle. Carlyle found that faithful preaching of the gospel brought both great success and opposition. It may have been his militant vision and single-mindedness that was provoking to some people, but the Church Army was born out of a desire to preach the gospel, a gospel that the mainstream churches were failing to proclaim.
Christian love requires Christian action. That is, a meeting of all the needs of the poor and deprived, both material and spiritual. It requires care for the whole person.
The dedication, the commitment, the pioneering vision of the Church Army was to set aflame a light that would never be quenched. It was a flame that would leave no part of Britain untouched, as it burgeoned forth in a vital mission to reach the worst. Carlyle possessed, to a striking degree, the ability of carrying his hearers with him in the power of his own graphic descriptions and the excitement of his faith and imagination. Open-air meetings became the talk of the district. Remarkable services, they had remarkable results. Carlyle's own vision was captured by the men and women who worked with him, and with indefatigable energy they enabled his vision to become a reality. 100 mission vans visited isolated villages attached to various dioceses throughout the country. News teams travelled from parish to parish, alleviating distress by helpful advice and practical assistance, declaring their care and concern for those battling with the complexities of life. The Church Army Gazette, with a circulation of over 100,000 copies weekly, was largely maintained by sales in public houses on a Saturday night.
Go for the worst. Fight for the right of men and women to know God and to receive help in time of need.
Go for the worst became a catchphrase, with Carlyle nicknamed Archbishop of the Gutter, as he sought to reach those suffering the greatest deprivation. In 1883, a college was established for the training of converted working men as full-time evangelists. A college for women followed in 1887, under the guidance of Marie Carlyle. From the beginning, Marie Carlyle shared her brother's deep compassion for needy humanity, and was a natural leader of the Society's women's work. Since that time, men and women have played an equal part in Church Army work. In 1889, the first Church Army rescue shelter for women was opened. In 1891, the first laundry home to provide shelter and wages for deprived women. Church Army work aid homes provided wages and board and lodging to homeless, destitute men in return for manual labour. And it was the reputation of the work aid homes, 24 of them connected with prisons, which opened the doors of Wandsworth Prison for an 8-day mission in 1897. And so began the prison mission work, with the first Church Army home for released prisoners, ready to meet the Probation Act of 1909. Care for prisoners' families was, and is, an integral and crucial part of long-term care. The first Church Army hostel, a tramps and inebriates home, was set up in 1890. The first Church Army medical mission, in the West London slums, dates from 1894. In 1905, King Edward's labour tents were prominent landmarks in the Strand and Aldwych neighbourhoods, with up to 800 men admitted each day, providing work and wages for the unemployed. In 1914, the Church Army rose to the opportunities brought by the war for work of a combined evangelistic and social character. 200,000 men daily visited Church Army centres, and so great was official appreciation of the value of the work that Church Army representatives were given every encouragement and assistance. In France, Italy, East Africa, Jerusalem, Gallipoli, Salonika, Baghdad, and other theatres of war, wherever the need existed, the Church Army was there, with its welcome sign, open to all. The men who served were deeply grateful for the efforts made in the name of the Church by the Church Army.
In those days, the thoughts of countless thousands were turned in the direction of God.
With demobilization, the Church Army helped many thousands to find work and provided substantial care for those requiring rehabilitation. The establishment of Church Army housing in 1924 today stands as a monument to the success of this enterprise, or for those in need. As society has changed, and as the state has taken on much greater responsibility for social welfare, the work of the Church Army in the social sphere has also changed and developed. Nowadays it works alongside government and voluntary agencies, yet it's always striven to remain true to the vision of its founder, to marry the twin imperatives of evangelism and social action. The Church Army today is active at those crisis points where most people say something should be done. Trained at the Church Army College for 3 years, men and women are admitted to the office of evangelist within the Church of England. A large part of their work is carried out on the move. Famed for their missions in town and country, reaching holidaymakers, children, young people, and those who live on the streets, using every modern method of communication to proclaim the message that God cares for the individual. Long and short-term stays in parishes encourages work in the local situation. Training programs equip others to understand that they too must become communicators, able to reassure those who are confused in a world of rapid and often cruel change. Unemployment, the crucial issue of our day, finds the Church Army in the forefront of positive action, establishing workshop training schemes and encouraging young people to visit youth centres for recreation and friendship. Counselling services in London and Manchester give practical advice and assistance. Sheldon, the Farm Adventure Centre with its open-air theatre, attracts thousands of visitors every year, as does the Beaconscott Model Village, managed by the Church Army. A progressive and imaginative training in scouting and guiding, inaugurated after the Second World War, allows groups and companies affiliated to the Church Army to participate in special badge work and adventurous activities. Officers are hard at work in deprived inner-city areas, Northern Ireland, and other tension-ridden areas of the country, bringing reconciliation and hope into broken homes and shattered lives. The Church Army provides hostels for the single homeless, the unmarried mother, the destitute, hostels for the prevention of drug addiction and those unable to cope with life. The aim is always rehabilitation, the declaration of Christian love in action. Chaplains' assistants work in the prisons, amongst the armed forces, and within the 6 forces centres for the British Army on the Rhine. Officers are involved in the medical services, hospitals and hospices. Homes for the elderly provide for those in retirement. Over 30,000 people each day are being reached by the love of God. This is the church army out on the streets, facing the challenge of people in crisis. Not only in Britain, but overseas in Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand, East Africa, and the Caribbean. Men and women inspired with the vision of Wilson Carlyle. Christian love in action. Wilson Carlyle lived to be 95. Despite his lifelong poor health, his indefatigable energy and devotion kept him working right up to his death. His 90th birthday in 1937 brought him praise and congratulations from all over the world. Wilson Carlyle's response to all the acclamation he received was characteristic. Not for one moment did he rest in what had been achieved. He was too aware of how the church army and the whole church had fallen short of the Christ it claimed to follow.
Dear friends, we are very proud to have you here. This is a day of rejoicing for you, but a day of humiliation for me. I've been supported by the archbishops and all the bishops in this country, and by many leading men and women. I've been given money for the work, and yet there are still criminals, people sleeping out, and people who never say a prayer. Why has there not been a greater result? God help us to join in this holy war.
May the Lord answer you when you're in trouble. May the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from his temple and give you aid from Mount Zion. Oh, may he accept all of your offering and be pleased with all your sacrifices. May he give you what you desire and make all your plans succeed. Then we will shout for joy over your victory and celebrate your triumph by praising our God. Then we will shout for joy over your victory. Celebrate your triumph by praising our God. And celebrate your triumph by praising